I will now give a presentation of my findings of my dissertation. This presentation was very useful for me to do because I will defend my dissertation soon and it will be good practice for me. After my presentation, if you want to give me any suggestions or critiques of what I can change or improve, it will be greatly appreciated. Next slide, please. To start, I will go over my research questions that framed the direction of my work. They are as follows. 1. What are the lived experiences of young adults who use AAC and their ability to have greater self-advocacy and leadership skills after participating in a peer mentoring program? 2. Do these young adults who use AAC report that the leadership and self-advocacy skills they acquired during the mentoring program will help them negotiate the ableism and marginalization they will face in the dominant society? If so, how? 3. How do these mentoring programs assist the mentees who use AAC to utilize the rights and privileges that were gained during the disability rights and independent living movement? I will now briefly explain why I picked these research questions. For the first question, I was interested in how the AAC mentor or peer support programs that I observed taught self-advocacy and leadership skills, which are very important for people who use AAC to learn. For the second question, I was interested in looking at how these peer support programs prepare their participants for challenges that they will face in the larger society, such as ableism. In fact, I spent a good portion of my dissertation explaining how ableism negatively affects the disability community, especially those individuals who use AAC. In the last and final question, I wanted to explore how AAC peer support better prepare people to advocate for their rights, especially those given to them by the disability rights and independent living movement. Next slide, please. As part of my literature review, I give great detail of how ableism affects society. I give examples of the historical underpinnings of this oppression, from the eugenics movement to the popularization of the passing of ugly laws at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. This was the time when people with disabilities were institutionalized and were kept away from the mainstream public. The disability community counteracted this type of oppression by forming the disability rights movement and acquiring legal rights with the passing of the American Disability Act and the Olmstead decision. This coincided with the development of AAC technology, which gave people who cannot rely on speech alone to be understood a reliable and effective way to communicate with those in their community. From earlier AAC devices like the talking brooch, the technology continued to develop until now. AAC technology are apps on phone and tablets, and also the use of artificial intelligence technology. In my literature review, I also gave examples of AAC peer support models, such as the AAC mentoring project at Penn State University, which was developed by Dr. Janice Light and Drive David McLeod to connect 30 adults who use AAC with 30 teenagers who use AAC to guide them through life issues. Next slide, please. Now I will give a brief summary of how I collected my data and my methodology. For my dissertation, I wrote a participant ethnography in which, in my field research, I saw my interviewees as co-researchers with whom I joined to investigate the intricacies of AAC mentoring together. My field research encompasses 3 AAC peer support sites. The 3 research sites are the Bridging Communities Through Alternative Communication, TAC, the Bridge School Self-Determination Program, SDP, and the AAC Reciprocal Learning Center, RLC, put on by the University Design Lab at Portland State University. The TAC is an adult peer support group for people who use AAC in the Bay Area to meet and do local activities with each other, either online or in the community. The SDP is a mentorship program at the Bridge School where adults who use AAC come into the elementary school and mentor the young students who use AAC. The RLC was a one-semester program where high school students who use AAC came together with adults who use AAC and graduate students to discuss and produce different types of music. All 3 sites contributed to my thinking about my research. I recruited participants at the Bridge School SDP, the TAC support group, and the AAC Research Learning Community, RLC. I sent an email to everyone that used the AAC who contacted me to learn more about the study, explaining its purpose, the criteria for participation, and that they would be required to meet with me for about 1 to 1.5 hours via Zoom video interview session. I suggested that during the interview, they be in a room by themselves with their computer to ensure that our communication would be private. Interviews were either conducted on Zoom or there was one online group interview of the TAC peer support group that took place on the Cisco Systems meeting platform. Each interview was conducted on Crypt time and allowed for both the interviewer and the interviewees to say their questions and their responses at their own pace on their AAC devices or programs. I also attended AAC social gatherings put on by the RLC and took field notes. There are 7 individuals who used AAC participating in the study. 6 were adults who were AAC. 1 was of an elementary school-age girl who used AAC who was interviewed with her mother. The age range for those individuals who used AAC was from 9 to 44 years of age. The 7 AAC users had significant speech and mobility disabilities. Next slide, please. Now I will go over some of my findings of my research. I separated the data into 4 themes: developing self-advocacy, facilitating camaraderie, developing communication skills, and facilitating achievement for mentees' goals. For the developing self-advocacy theme, I assessed how effective the AAC peer support programs that I observed instilled self-advocacy skills to its participants. I did this by selecting out comments that my interviewees gave in their interview that highlight how they gain confidence in their self-advocacy skills that lead them to a stronger identity in being people who use AAC. I assessed in the facilitating camaraderie theme how the people in peer support groups that I studied build friendships and supportive relationships with each other. I did this by highlighting and analyzing the comments participants had experienced in camaraderie in their peer support programs. With the developing communication skills theme, I assessed how the peer support groups assist their participants develop their communication skills. For this theme, people told me how the peer support programs that they were involved in contributed to their improved self-expression. And finally, in the theme, facilitating achievement for mentees' goals, I assess how the mentees in the peer support programs were assisted in the goals that they had. In my assessment of this theme, I analyzed the comments the mentors had about assisting their mentees in achieving their leadership and advocacy goals, and how it led to their success. Next slide, please. In my discussion section, I reiterated my research questions and explained specifically how I answer them. For the question, what are the lived experiences of young adults who use AAC and their ability to have greater self-advocacy and leadership skills after participating in a peer mentoring program? I gave examples of participants advocating for themselves and illustrating leadership skills to those that are around them. With the second question, these young adults who use AAC report that the leadership and self-advocacy skills they acquired during the mentoring program will help them negotiate the ableism and marginalization they will face in the dominant society. If so, how? I illustrated how AAC peer support groups come together as a community to support members in their group who are going through ableist challenges. Finally, with the last question, how do these mentoring programs assist the mentees who use AAC to utilize the rights and privileges that were gained during the disability rights and independent living movement? I commented on how peer groups looked at disability rights history, which inspired them to organize and advocate for their community by giving presentations and other activities. Next slide, please. In conclusion, I deduced a couple of qualities that peer support programs engage in to be successful. These qualities are to meet frequently, have a good structure, and encourage the mentee's self-expression. Programs should meet frequently because that consistency enables participants to build familiarity and relationships with each other so they can better assist one another. Having a good structure is important for programs because participants can better engage with the program when they have a clear sense of what they're doing. Finally, programs should encourage the mentee's self-expression because for people who are learning to use AAC, how they express themselves is important to them as they improve their communication skills on their AAC devices. Being in a space that values that development of self-expression and self-advocacy becomes very important and is one of the indicators of the success of these AAC peer support programs. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.